At once in August 2017, I received a secured email of a very good source, criminal source. And he told me, Paul, watch out, this is not a joke, but now it's about yourself. They are going to kill you. And they are working on it for weeks now.
Czech Center for Investigative Reporting and Dark Riviera present Protagonista, a war room content project hosted by Pavla Holcová. Protagonista puts investigative reporters at the heart of the story. Paul Vugts is a Dutch investigative journalist and crime reporter who has documented the rise in power and reach of the Narco-Mafia in the Netherlands, notably investigating the infamous Narco-Mafia and one of its leaders, Ridouan Taghi. Paul, what does it actually mean to be a crime reporter? Does it mean that you would come to the crime scene, take a picture of the police tape and ask the neighbors what is going on?
That's one of the parts of the job. Yes, so I do both. I do my own research. I go to the places where, for example, people have been killed. I also will be in court in the big court cases. And most of all, my colleague and I, we do a lot of research about cocaine trafficking. The Netherlands are a very important player into cocaine in the cocaine industry, as you know.
But you also have, and you talk quite often to the people directly from organized crime. How
Yes.
do you start talking to them? Do you just come to the doors, ring the bell and ask?
I will ring bells near crime scenes, but that's not the way to get in touch with the criminals. Most of the times, it's themselves. They will reach out for me, angry. They will tell me, remove this article of the internet because it's all lies. And I'll tell them I will not remove the article because I don't think it's all lies. So you need to show me what's a lie in your opinion. And then a few days later, I will arrange a cup of coffee with them and sit down and tell them why I do what I do. And then some kind of contact starts. You've looked in each other's eyes, and when the heat's off it, of course you can, with the more intelligent criminals, you can discuss this kind of stuff. And you have, of course, criminals who reach out to me because they want to tell me about their concurrence.
They want to use you.
They want to misuse me, use me. Once there's a bit of a relation, journalist, criminal, that can last for years, for many years, for decades sometimes.
Are there any rules that you need to know about the conduct of the criminals? For example, we are not reporting on their lovers, wives, spouses, kids, unless they are part of the business.
They need to know the rules that I'm independent. I won't take a side. But it's a red flag to write about relatives with no good reason at all. For many of that, they don't want you to write about their mental state.
Like you can't write they are depressed or...
You can, but I'll choose show, don't tell. For example, you have this many encrypted messages, and if you quote the messages, the readers or listeners or viewers, they'll know, wow, they are talking about killing people the same way as we are talking about going to a supermarket and have some beer for in the evening.
Let's talk about one of the groups and probably one of your most prominent and quite long reporting on Narco-Mafia and Marengo trial. What is Narco-Mafia?
I will never talk about Narco-Mafia myself in those terms because it's not all Moroccans and it's not mafia in the Italian style. But in the past, in the 80s, 90s, and after 2000, you had in Amsterdam, for example, you had Dutch crime groups, Yugoslavian crime groups, and all different parts. But from the beginning of this millennium, young guys of Moroccan descent, for example, but also from Suriname, which is a former colony of the Netherlands, and the Dutch Antilles, same, and just Dutch guys came up and became powerful in the drug trafficking. And some of the groups became very rich and mighty. And the police was maybe a bit late at the party analyzing how powerful they went.
What made them powerful? The brutality, connections,
Brutality,
money?
connection, money. For example, we have the whole group about Ridouan Taghi. Ridouan Taghi is nowadays the most notorious suspect in...
Is he still suspect?
Yes, he's convicted to lifelong in prison, but he's appealing, and so it's not...
so it's going to drag.
Yeah, and it's still going on. It's... takes a lot of time for me, this Marengo trial. Marengo trial is a trial against Ridouan Taghi, and in the beginning 16 other suspects accused of murdering criminals. And during the trial, innocent people have been killed. For example, there's a crown witness as a key player in this trial. And once this crown witness was presented by the government, 6 days later, his innocent brother was killed. Because the group couldn't reach the crown witness himself. And for the first time in the Netherlands, just a relative was killed to hit.
Just to send a message?
Yes. Later on, one of the lawyers who helped the crown witness dealing with the government was killed in 2019 in front of his house.
It's a lawyer.
A lawyer. It was the first time in the Netherlands that something like that happened. Later on, my colleague Peter R. de Vries, a very well-known crime reporter in the Netherlands.
We will get there.
He decided to help the crown witness fighting against the state. He was killed as well. So around the trial, horrific things happened, and many judges, prosecutors, lawyers, journalists are living in security or need to be in security sometimes.
So the justice system was not really ready for someone like Ridouan Taghi, who just didn't take any mercy or chances or...
I think our government and we as journalists have been naive for a long time. We thought, because this kind of violence was new to the Netherlands.
So Ridouan Taghi was this kind of a head of Narco-Mafia.
He's seen that way, yes.
And Narco-Mafia teamed up with other, let's say, cartels or mafias to bring tons and tons of cocaine to Europe via Netherlands.
Worth billions, yes. Nowadays, international drug trafficking, especially cocaine trafficking and synthetic drugs, is globalized. So the guys who were born and raised in Amsterdam, they can be in Dubai, and
they are in Dubai.
They are in Dubai, and they are in Morocco. They have very good contacts in Colombia and Bolivia, Ecuador. And the group around Ridouan Taghi cooperates with the group about the Kinahans, for example. Notorious family
and
from
Camorra.
Camorra from Italy.
And Balkans.
So the groups, they cooperate, and we have another guy, Bolle Jos, Fat Jos Leidekkers. He's on the run and now for years already.
So let's go back to Ridouan Taghi. He is bringing cocaine. He's smuggling, I guess, methamphetamine. Or trading it, or fentanyl, or something.
Yeah, most we know is there's evidence about cocaine trafficking. First, hashish, and his because maybe it's good to stress that he was born in Morocco, raised in the Netherlands, but in Morocco, his family already was doing hashish, and if you have
hashish,
and if you have from the north of Morocco. For example, Tangier, the harbor place, you can see the south of Spain if the weather is good. And they trafficked with very fast speedboats. They trafficked hashish from Morocco to the south of Europe. And Ridouan Taghi, the story is that Ridouan Taghi changed hashish into cocaine. And then you earn fast because that's about a lot more.
You don't need money.
Sure, in a few years they became very, very powerful and rich because once it's in Europe, it's
in
worth
Europe.
A lot of money and easy because of the European Union and almost no borders. It's easy to traffic it. So Ridouan Taghi used all the infrastructure as well to get very rich very fast.
And if there was any business dispute, he just started to kill people.
Yes, and he's convicted for that, for having criminals killed. So it's an organization. You have different. You have the hitman. You have the
Different roles.
Yes, different roles, and then middleman. And the idea was that the hitman would never ever know who was Ridouan Taghi, for example. So the most
Who
big-
paid? Who ordered? Who paid?
Yes, who contracted them. And 2015, there was a man walked in a police station in the south of the Netherlands, a criminal, and he told the police, "There's this Ridouan Taghi. He's a very powerful organization, and he is after me. They want to kill me, but they won't succeed because I'm hiding. But this organization is after my friends now because they can't find me. They'll kill my friends." Later
Did it
on.
happen?
What happened was the guy who walked in the police station, he is assassinated in the south of Spain. So he predicted that the organization of Ridouan Taghi would, if they wouldn't succeed getting himself, they would kill relatives. And that's what later on happened with the relatives of the crown witness. As I told you, his brother was killed, his lawyer was killed.
It's breaking the criminal code.
Yes. Shortly after, for the first time, the encrypted communication was hacked by the government. All the messages were seized, and that led to a lot of evidence against criminals because they thought it would never be read. So they communicating very clearly about we're gonna kill him. He's gonna be the hitman. He's gonna be the spotter. He's gonna be paid this and that. And we need this stolen car to get away. And step by step became clear who was Ridouan Taghi in this big Marengo trial. In the first round, he was convicted to lifelong in prison, and now the second trial is going on, the appeal.
So how was he arrested?
Ridouan Taghi was on the run for a long time, and finally he was arrested in Dubai in a luxurious apartment.
In Dubai. So Dubai extradited someone.
Yes, and because he had entered Dubai with false paperwork, Dubai told the Netherlands, "We have this Ridouan Taghi you're looking for. Pick him up if you want to." So our government arranged a special airplane, and they went there to pick him up. And he's been beaten up in Dubai, and then he was
in Dubai by whom?
By Dubai officials.
Sure.
As far as we know.
So he was brought to Netherlands,
Yes.
put in jail.
Yes.
So was it the end of Narco-Mafia?
No, it was not. It's still the organization was still functioning without him.
Did he somehow coordinate it? His group from the prison?
A nephew of Ridouan Taghi, who was also a lawyer named Youssef Taghi, he became part of the team of lawyers Ridouan Taghi had. And from then, he came in and out of this extra secured prison very often. He called very often and long. And in the end, we came to know that Ridouan Taghi used this lawyer to get information in and out.
How do we know? There's a client-attorney privilege. They can't listen in.
They can't, and that is the whole problem. And for me, the bad thing...
You knew, right?
I knew it from April. Good sources told me, watch out, look at that. There's an extra lawyer in the team now, and he's also a nephew. And the sources said, we think he's only used to traffic information in and out the prison, which I could not, of course, prove. And as a journalist, that was hard to me because I want to publish about it. But two things made me not do that. The first thing is security. So I went to prosecutors, policemen, and people high in ministries, secretaries, because I knew that many people knew, but no one dared tell that. So in the end, I was still trying to figure out how to publish this story. And by then, Peter R. de Vries, my colleague as a crime reporter, who had started to help the Crown Witness, he was killed in July 2021. And maybe he was killed because Ridouan Taghi ordered that via Yusuf Taghi, via the open line. We will never know, because by then still there was no listening in. Only in August 2021, for the first time, our prosecutors had a tap on on the communication with Yusuf Taghi and Ridouan Taghi. And in the end, Yusuf Taghi, in October 2021, he was arrested. And in a very well-known trial in the Netherlands, he's been convicted to 5.5 years in prison for being part of the criminal organization of Ridouan Taghi, for smuggling in and out information about drug trafficking, about money laundering, and about plans to violently get Ridouan Taghi out of this prison. And there was a plan to try to find out who 4 managers of this prison, where they lived, and we don't know what plans they were arranging, but maybe there was a plan to either kidnap them or do something violent against them to put pressure on the state. But we don't know.
So could we say that because you are a country with a strong rule of law, that's what killed Peter de Vries?
It's possible. We can't prove it, but if you look from a distance, in December 2016, a crime blogger was killed who had been publishing about Ridouan Taghi for the first time. Then December 2017, my colleague John van der Heuvel was put into the highest security program. 2 newsrooms of the Telegraaf and of a magazine, Panorama, had been attacked. One with a car full of fuel and another with a rocket launch propelled grenade. So if you look from a distance, everybody thinks that the group around Ridouan Taghi is involved in that. But there's not, for all the cases, there's no evidence.
Let's talk about Peter de Vries and the story you did not publish. Mm-hmm. Do you regret not publishing it and, possibly saving his life?
I do regret not publishing and not publishing in time. But I still okay with the thought. I wouldn't act different now if it was the same situation, because it was impossible to publish it in the right way by then. And I think Peter de Vries knew about Yusuf Taghi as well, via the same sources I had.
And still he took the risk, or he just didn't see it coming?
Peter de Vries was a brave man and he just did what he thought he needed to do.
When you talk about all the killings, could you just tell me, and also because you are reporting on crime for the last 25 years, what changed in Amsterdam on a crime scene in those last 25 years? Because, your career as a crime reporter started with a murder, and it was not, let's say, uncommon.
At the beginning of this millennium, there were many killings in Amsterdam, criminals killing criminals. What's new is violence against what I call the upper world, violence against a lawyer, violence against newsrooms, journalists, threats that makes it necessary that judges, prosecutors, lawyers, journalists are in security programs. That's new.
How does it reflect on an average society? Are people scared? Do they move out of Amsterdam?
2 main things changed. Everybody connected to the Marengo trial with the main suspect Ridouan Taghi has been living in fear sometimes after the murder of the lawyer, after the murder of Peter de Vries, and a lot of explosions going on. Last year, 2024, there have been almost 1,200 heavy explosions in the country. That causes a lot of fear. So we have a different kind of violence, and it's closer to normal civilians than it used to be.
Have you seen in your reporting that some of the organized criminal groups, let's say, for example, Russians, would actually operate on behalf of a foreign government in Amsterdam?
What we see is that Mexican cartels or Colombian cartels send people in to the Netherlands, for example, to prepare drugs and
like a chemist.
Yes, as chemists, and as cooks, learn Dutch criminals to how to handle as cooks, and so they can produce themselves for the gangs of abroad.
Are there any other trends, like of last years, that you haven't seen before in organized crime? Like, for example, bringing cocaine in tons and not hundreds of kilograms, or this high-quality Mexican-produced methamphetamine?
The biggest difference we see is the amounts of cocaine, the size of the parties of the cocaine trafficked in. So, I think even 2015, 2016, you could see 200 kilos, 300 kilos being, for example, seized in the cocaine, seized in the harbor of Rotterdam, and now it's tons. Think as the criminal who took the risk. I think the criminal thinks that 4 or 5 other parties, same size,
will just
through.
pass.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that tells how powerful the organizations are. The cooperating different cartels are.
So the cooperation is another new trend, because, you
Yes.
know, traditionally they should be killing each other.
They are much more smarter when they cooperate, and they do. And their whole underground banking system, illegal banking system they set up was out of sight 10 years ago, with brokers and mixing all the kind of criminal money bases. So that's new as well.
So how do you see the future?
Normally, as a person, I'm an optimist, but the amount of money and the power that brings that to the big players are a huge problem. On the other side, main players, very huge players who were untouchable, are in prison now as well. So it's two sides of the same medal, but the next years we can see, for example, if you look at the Netherlands, we are coping with narco-terror now. If you kill Peter R. de Vries, my colleague, he was one of the most well-known, the best-known people in the Netherlands. He was in talk shows more times a week.
So he was celebrity.
He was really a celebrity, and having him killed in the center of Amsterdam in the beginning of the evening, you do that to massively shock our society. It's no use. There is no, as a business model, it's nothing. It breaks down your
business.
Cocaine trafficking organization because of all the attention and all the power that the state will put on it. So we are coping with narco-terror. But the Netherlands are not a narco state yet, because they are not, the criminals are not ruling in The Hague. Our residents are not ruling in the top of our politics.
How to stop them? How to stop them taking over? How to stop them from infiltrating the key positions?
But the only thing the government can do, that all the governments need to be aware. Only a few years ago, that for the first time, a civil servant that was providing passports to key players in our Dutch crime scene was convicted and was brought to court. So the corruption is not in the top of our politics, but the corruption is widespread in sea harbors, in border security, in civil servants who provide passports, for example. And the awareness about that is young and it's very risky. It needs to be top of mind. Politicians, civil servants always they look outside to the criminals, but they don't look inside in their own organization.
So our task is to remind.
Yes, our task as journalists is to point at all those problems and to remind our politicians and our civilians that we have a huge risk of being infiltrated and corrupted by the very wealthy crime bosses.
how do you deal with a fear? Because you don't look to me like a psychopathic, no emotions person. So you need to feel fear.
Of course.
You have to be afraid.
And I'm not brave. But I can put my work aside in private life. Of course, I'm aware of risks, but I do ride my bicycle in Amsterdam. And I do live
What might be safer, you would see the bump on a bike. You may miss it on a car.
And you're true. And that's how officials sometimes can't think. But it is true. And you can think of yourself, I'm always alert after 10 beers. And I like to drink 10 beers if I'm in the weekend. You're less alert.